You've seen the posts and the videos of these little blue drops that influencers claim will supercharge your brain, give you razor sharp focus, and flood you with energy. It's called methylene blue. And right now it's blowing up online. But before you consider putting this stuff in your body, you need to know the full story. Stay with me because by the end of this video, you're going to have the truth if this trend is really safe. Let's start at the beginning. Methylene blue wasn't discovered as some super supplement or brain booster. It was first created in 1876 by a German chemist named Heinrich Caro, and its first purpose was a dye. That's right, it was meant to color fabric. But something interesting happened. Scientists noticed that methylene blue had properties that allowed it to stay in biological tissue, helping researchers see cells and bacteria under a microscope. It became a key tool in early medical research, and from there, its journey took a surprising turn. This supplement has a strange journey. By the late 1800s, doctors were experimenting with methylene blue to treat malaria. In fact, it became one of the first synthetic medicines ever used to fight disease. During World War I, it was used in German troops as part of their malaria treatment. It was even used as an antiseptic. And in modern medicine, methylene blue is still used to this day, mainly to treat methemoglobinemia, a rare condition where your blood can't carry oxygen properly. In that setting, it's a life-saving drug. But here's the key. It's used in controlled doses in a medical setting by professionals who know what they're doing. How do we go from medical dye and malaria treatment to Instagram brain booster? Well, methylene blue affects your mitochondria, the tiny energy factories inside your cells. Some studies show it can improve mitochondrial effect and act as an antioxidant. And in the biohacking world, where people are always searching for the next big thing to gain an edge, methylene blue becomes the shiny new object. A compound that might improve brain function, might increase energy, and that's gold in the biohacking community. And some striking blue visuals for social media, and the trend was born. Let's break this down. There are studies of methylene blue, but who are they on? Mostly in animals and some cell cultures. There's evidence it can reduce oxidative stress, support mitochondrial function, and even improve memory and learning in animal models. Human studies, that's where things thin out. There are small studies suggesting methylene blue might help with memory tasks or cognitive function in people with certain conditions, but for healthy people, taking it daily to boost brain power, the data just isn't there. And no one has established safe, effective doses for that kind of use. This is the part of the story that often gets left out of those social media posts. Methylene blue isn't some harmless natural compound. It's powerful and it can be dangerous. One of the biggest risks comes if you have something called G6PD deficiency. That's a genetic condition that affects how your red blood cells handle oxidative stress. And if you have it and you take methylene blue, your red blood cells can break apart, a process called hemolysis. That can lead to anemia, fatigue, jaundice, and even organ damage. G6PD deficiency is more common than you might think. It affects about 400 million people worldwide. It's especially common in people of African, Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, and Southeast Asian descent. And here's the scary part. Many people who have it don't even know they do, because it often doesn't cause any symptoms until they're exposed to a trigger, like certain medications or foods or methylene blue. Methylene blue also interacts with medications, especially antidepressants like SSRIs. Together, they can cause something called serotonin syndrome. That's when your body has dangerously high levels of serotonin. It can cause agitation, confusion, tremors, high blood pressure, and fever. In extreme cases, that can be life-threatening. This isn't theory. This is documented in medical case reports. People in hospitals who are given methylene blue during surgery while also on SSRIs develop serotonin syndrome. So imagine the risk when people are self-dosing at home without medical supervision. More isn't better. One of the biggest problems with trendy compounds like methylene blue is that people often assume if a little is good, more must be better, right? No, wrong. But with methylene blue, the dose makes the poison. At low levels, it might act as an antioxidant, but at higher levels, it can flip and become a pro-oxidant, actually increase cellular stress. Plus, the doses used in medical treatments are carefully calculated and given in precise conditions. That's a far cry from someone squirting a dropper into their morning coffee without really knowing how much they're getting. Medical grade methylene blue is different from the industrial grade stuff that's sold for things like fish tank treatments or textile work. Some of what's being sold online is not pure. It can contain heavy metals, solvents, or other contaminants, and people are ingesting that stuff without knowing what's really in it. Now let's dive into one of the lesser known chapters in methylene blue's history, its experimental use in psychiatry. Back in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, long before modern psychiatric medications existed, doctors were exploring anything that might help with severe mental illness. Methylene blue, already in use as a dye and antiseptic, caught their attention because of its effects on the nervous system. In 1890s and early 1900s, methylene blue was tested as a potential treatment for conditions like psychosis and what we now call bipolar disorder, at the time referred as manic depressive illness. Reasoning was that methylene blue's chemical action on the brain, particularly its influence on oxidative processes and metabolism, might help stabilize mood or reduce psychotic episodes. Some early case reports sounded hopeful. A few physicians claimed that methylene blue calmed agitation in certain patients, or that it seemed to reduce the intensity of psychotic symptoms. But these studies weren't controlled. There were no placebos, no rigorous testing, and certainly no long-term safety data. As time went on, enthusiasm for methylene blue in psychiatry faded. The effects were inconsistent, unpredictable, and often overshadowed by side effects, including potential toxicity at higher doses. The medical community moved on to other treatments. But here's the interesting part. These early experiments showed just how fascinated scientists have been with methylene blue for over a century. It reminds us that while this compound has some powerful properties, it's not a magic bullet, and we still have much to learn about its impact on the human brain. With all we know about methylene blue's risks, like serotonin syndrome, anemia, and its potential for harm in G6PD deficiency, it's clear why we need to approach these old ideas with a critical eye. Just because something is natural or has a long history doesn't mean it's automatically safe for everyone. There are published case reports of methylene blue causing harm. One example, a patient undergoing surgery given methylene blue to help identify nerves developed serotonin syndrome because they were on an SSRI. Another case, methylene blue given to someone with unrecognized G6PD deficiency triggered severe hemolysis and kidney damage. These aren't just theoretical risks. They've happened, and they could happen to someone self-medicating without realizing the dangers. I'll put the link for these cases in the description below. Let's take a second to talk about how trends like this take off. A few influencers post a flashy video. They cherry-pick data. They leave out the risks. They don't mention that most of the studies are in animals, and before you know it, you've got thousands of people jumping on the bandwagon, buying methylene blue from questionable sources and taking it without medical guidance. That's how trends can become dangerous. Here's the good news. You don't need risky compounds to support your mitochondria or your brain. Get some sunlight, do some walking, get good sleep. These all help mitochondria functions. Foods like blueberries, dark chocolate, green tea, and turmeric. They provide antioxidants without the dangers of methylene blue. Adaptogens like ashwagandha, reishi, and ginseng have been studied for their brain and energy benefits, and they have safely profiles backed by centuries of use. If you haven't seen my video on adaptogens, I'll leave it at the end of this video. Check it out. I'll also leave a list of alternatives to methylene blue in the description. So how do you protect yourself? Always look at the full body of evidence and not just the cherry-picked data. Be wary of anyone who's pushing a single compound as a miracle cure, and before you take anything new, especially something as potent as methylene blue, talk to a qualified health professional. Get tested for conditions like G6PD deficiency if needed. Here's my honest take on methylene blue. It's a fascinating compound. It has real medical uses. It has some interesting science behind it, but right now, for healthy people using it as a daily supplement, the risks outweigh the potential benefits. The hype has gotten way ahead of the evidence. If you want to experiment with cutting-edge compounds, do it under medical supervision. Don't risk your health for likes or follows. Your health is too important to gamble on trends. Instead, focus on what we know works. Real food, movement, sunlight, sleep, stress management. If you want help with that, check out my other videos. Let's build real lasting health together. And before you take something like methylene blue, please watch this video again, share it with someone you care about, and I'll see you in the next one.